And welcome back to another episode of Movie in the Middle. Thank you once again for letting me into your living rooms tonight. We have a very special episode for you, but I must warn you, ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to witness will be analytical and insightful, and quite possibly even funny. On this broadcast, we will be discussing the newest horror film, Late Night with the Devil.
Late Night with the Devil.
Late Night with the Devil came out just a few weeks ago on Shudder and is now in theaters all over the country for you to watch. Its plot is as follows. Late Night with the Devil is the newest horror showing the full recording and behind-the-scenes footage of a fictional late-night talk show, Night Owls, in which they bring on a girl possessed by a demon. It stars David Dastmalchian, Ingrid Torelli, Laura Gordon, and Ian Bliss. Okay, so as you all know, of course, David Dastmalchian is an iconic horror actor, but he's also been in many other things, including but not limited to The Dark Knight, the Ant-Man trilogy, The Boogeyman, and The Suicide Squad. He is one of many highs of this movie, but the biggest, probably for me at least, has to be the visuals and production design. This movie is, of course, set in the 70s, and as such, it has all of the production design of a 70s late-night TV show, and they have it down pat. Everything from the colors, to the designs, to the camera shots, the aspect ratio, of course, even the grainy look of the entire thing just brings you into this world of this late-night talk show that is not only very popular, but very creepy. Everything that they did served to make it feel like it was actually a 70s show. If somebody had asked me, was this made in the 70s or made in 2023, I would have said that this was made probably in the 70s. I would have believed it because the camera angles and everything that they do not only reflects a live TV show very, very well, but a live TV show for that time with all of their backdrops, how they talk to each other, every single bit of it. Not to mention, and this includes talk shows from today, that we're laughing at their humor and their bad jokes, ironically, not because they're funny, but because they're parodying really bad talk show jokes and bits. But let's talk a little bit more about David Dastmalchian, because as much as the visuals and production design go into making this movie what it really is carried by this incredible actor. He has been in so many small or medium-sized roles. I am so happy that he is finally getting the spotlight for once. Quite literally. Yes. I know. Usually he plays very creepy, very disturbed people in certain roles. Even the roles in which he's in mainstream movies, he's usually the weird guy or the odd one out. But in this one, he plays an all-out, charming, charismatic talk show host, and he brings this show to life, not only in his personality, but in the confidence and enthusiasm he has in this idea and in this show. But of course, they did have David Dastmalchian play the character for a specific reason, and while he does have this overwhelming personality and charm to him, or as you might say, riz, he does have this underlying sinister side to him that intrigues us, but also we know that he is not okay because he wants to continue for the sake of the show all of these segments that have to do with possession and very concerning things, and despite the fact that they become more dangerous and more alarming, he continues with them anyway. Along with this, the atmosphere of the show. This goes with both the characters and the design, everything all wrapped in one. It creates this atmosphere that is just so creepy and suspenseful, but you can't help but watch. And I find that this happens a lot with mockumentaries and found footage specifically. Things like Hell House LLC or Lake Mungo or the Poughkeepsie tapes. We need to know, even though we are scared to our core about what's happening, we just have to know what happened here, especially when it's something like a very bad event that went on, of course, Halloween night. And this movie starts out with it being a documentary of this night, and it's showing the whole footage of the entire episode plus behind the scenes footage. And so it started out very well setting the stage for this thing that happened, and you have to see it in real time, what happened on this show. And it just sets up for such a cool tone and feel the entire thing, especially considering all we're seeing it on is this original film in this 4x3 very tight space. And while all the actors were incredible in this movie in their respective roles, one that I have to just give immense props to is Ingrid Torelli, who plays the little girl who has a demon attached to her, the demon Abraxas. And the reason I have to give props to her is not only just because she was very good at being creepy in general, but I swear her voice was the most perfect voice for this role. When she first started talking, I thought they were layering it with something else, with someone else's voice, as they do later in the movie, and as they do in most possession movies, when it's her voice or the little girl's voice, plus other demonic voices, or even sounding like an old man's voice. And while her voice didn't naturally sound exactly like that, it did have that cadence to it, and it was slightly off. And of course, the story itself, while it was very basic, it was running through just a couple of segments in this show, it was very intriguing, kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. All these little moments about seeing footage on playback, or seeing somebody come on and you don't know if they're pretending and they're doing a segment, or if it's something's really wrong and something's actually happening to them. And then of course the behind the scenes, when you get the contrast of what David Dastmalchian's character is like on TV and on camera versus what he's like behind stage. That in and of itself creates a lot of contrast that is very creepy. Now, of course, I do have a couple of middles and lows. I know. But they will be brief, and they will be right after this commercial break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about the latest horror film, Late Night with the Devil. I have already gone over my highs and pros of the movie, and now, unfortunately, we have to get into some middles and lows. I do only have one main middle, but it is a larger discussion I will have to have in another video, another show, another time, because it is a much larger discussion. The discussion of AI in movies. Now, unfortunately, this movie has come under a little bit of fire for its use of AI in movies. Yeah, I know. And that sucks considering how good the movie is. And it does bring up a lot of concerns and a lot of questions about the use of AI in movies, especially going forward. In this movie, it is only used a handful of times. For its title cards, its will be back cards, things like that. There are a couple transitions in which they use AI imagery. And aside from anything else, they are very cool. They give, again, the tone of the movie very, very well, being creepy, but also kind of 70s. But the fact that they used AI to make them, it confuses me, if I'm being quite honest. Because if you're going to use AI to make something that would be very, very hard to make and is kind of uncanny in the way only AI can do, which is perfect for horror movies because there's just something just slightly wrong about it that humans almost can't do on their own. They might be able to, and a lot of people have, but it is very hard, and it's very easy with AI to do this. And used sparingly, I can understand where that might come into play. Again, sparingly, because it gives this very specific effect for a very specific movie. However, here, it was just title cards that reflected the sort of feel and look of the 70s of this TV show, and it is definitely something that they could have given to an artist to do, and not only would it have been just as good, if maybe not better, but somebody would have been able to get paid for that. That would have been a job. And this is the main concern, is that AI is taking jobs. Somebody could have made that. They could have put their spin on it, and then we could have been like, this was, somebody did this. Now, upon further inspection of the actual title cards that they use AI for, I did notice that there was mistakes. And there was uncanniness a little bit here and there. While again, I can see that being a good thing for some horror movies, here it just doesn't make sense. Because you only see them for a split second, or maybe a couple seconds at a time. So you won't even notice, unless you're specifically looking for it, that there are mistakes that AI makes in these title cards. And even if you do notice them, this is a show that's supposed to take place in the 70s. So why would they have these weird title cards that, like, if somebody was designing them, like a human, Why would they have mistakes to begin with? So I don't think it was necessary for this movie to use that. But in general, this is kind of a concerning topic, especially for where this is going to go, because where does it end? You know, and especially with a movie that's as good as this, and you have people who obviously know what they're doing and have a good sense, and they have authority over the visuals and how to tell a story, it is concerning that they would still use this. You can't just throw it away as like, oh, it's a bad movie that used AI and they're stupid. It is a movie that was very good, and they still used it anyway. It's a bigger discussion. For right now, it's a middle for me, just because it wasn't a huge part of the movie. It did serve its purpose of what it needed to do, but it is concerning. I only have one real low with this movie anyway, and that is unfortunately close towards the end. The third act of this movie, while very cool to start off, does get away a little bit. It gets kind of off track, and it takes me out of the movie. It is obviously for a certain purpose, and I do like what they do with it conceptually, and especially because even though the third act for me kind of goes off to the side, it loops back around to a couple final shots that are very harrowing. But the way it was done, for me, it went on too long. I didn't know what was exactly happening. It was confusing, and it's supposed to be confusing a little bit. It's supposed to be abstract and keeps you intrigued. But I was honestly here more so for the TV show. You know, I wanted the suspense of being in the live show, so I didn't want it going off the rails as much as it did. There's a couple mysteries built not only on just the show that's happening, but with the character of David Dastmalchian's Jack Delroy, and whether or not he has dabbled in some shady things with the devil himself. And I was hoping that they would answer some of these questions, and they do, but it's very vague and sort of implied, and you can pretty much surmise what's happened, but it wasn't that nuanced to me, and I was hoping for a little bit more. Additionally, because it started off as a documentary, and because they had this cool intrigue of watch this happen, and you know all of America was shocked by this, I would have liked to have seen that come back at the end as well, just a little bit, just a snippet wrapping up the documentary and what people thought, what their reactions were, what the narrator wanted to say about it. And they do just end the movie after this final climax, which again is very haunting, and it was very good. And I will not forget David Dastmalchian's genuine horrified scream in that ending. But I did feel it was a little bit lacking, especially considering how strong the first 2/3 of the movie were. So, Late Night with the Devil has done something very different, very new. It feels fresh. It has brought the Possession films back to life. I know. I'm on fire today, guys. Let's get serious. Late Night with the Devil is a very good movie. It kept me intrigued the entire way through. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I loved feeling like we were watching a very real, very raw look at something happening on an actual TV show. Its commitment to the production design and to feeling like you were actually in the 70s challenged that of even the holdovers from last year. I just wish they could have stuck the landing a little bit more, and I wish they didn't have to feel like they had to use AI. Out of the whole horror movie of things, that is probably the scariest thing to walk away with, is that this may just be a thing that's going to stay around. But hopefully, in the future, we will come to realize we don't need it. Or at least we don't need it much, and we don't have to take jobs away from people who actually have this talent. But that being said, Late Night with the Devil is one of my favorite movies of the year so far. Very creepy. I will wholeheartedly be watching this again, and I love that David Dastmalchian is getting the recognition that he deserves. He is an amazing actor. He creeped me out at first, and I didn't like him, and now I think he's one of the best. I'm going to give Late Night with the Devil a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, there you have it. That is our discussion on Late Night with the Devil. Thank you for joining this broadcast once again. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. We will see you guys next time. Drive safe.